The ancient crystalline being slowly opened his multifaceted eyes, each one catching the faint emergency lighting that flickered through the abandoned observation station. Veltar's body hummed with energy as consciousness returned after a century of deep meditation. His translucent form pulsed with soft blue light, casting dancing shadows across the dusty control panels that surrounded him. Something was wrong. Cosmic energy flowing through the galaxy felt different, chaotic in ways that made his crystalline structure vibrate with unease. In all his millennia of existence, Veltar had never experienced such a dramatic shift in the fundamental forces that governed galactic civilization. He extended his consciousness toward the station's main database, his ethereal fingers passing through the physical interface as his mind connected directly with the quantum storage systems. What he found made his entire being flicker with shock and disbelief. The Kethmoran Empire, rulers of 7 star systems and masters of plasma technology, had fallen. The Zephyrian war machine, whose automated fleets had conquered countless worlds, existed only in historical records. The Korvan hegemony, slavers who had dominated trade routes for centuries, were reduced to scattered refugee camps on the Outer Rim. In their place stood something impossible: the Terran Federation, humans, those primitive bipeds who had barely discovered fire when Veltar first cataloged their species, now commanded respect from the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. Their influence stretched across former imperial territories. Their ships patrolled trade routes, once controlled by species with 10,000 years of technological advancement. Veltar's crystalline form crackled with confusion. He remembered humans as curious but fragile creatures who lived brief lives and squabbled over resources on a single blue planet. How had they not only survived first contact with galactic civilization, but somehow risen to become its dominant force? The answer began to reveal itself in the archived battle records. Veltar accessed the files with growing fascination, his consciousness diving deep into the data streams that contained humanity's bloody rise to power. The first major conflict that caught his attention was labeled the Siege of Luna Station. The timestamp showed it occurred barely 50 years after humanity's first contact with alien species. Veltar watched the recorded events unfold with the detached interest of a historian studying ancient wars. Commander Park Jin-woo stood on the bridge of Luna Station, Earth's moon-based defense platform. Through the massive viewport, 3 massive Vorthok vessels approached, with the slow confidence of predators closing in on helpless prey. The ships were each 10 times larger than anything in Earth's fleet, their dark hulls bristling with energy. Weapons that could reduce planets to asteroids, the Vorthok had built their reputation on swift, overwhelming conquest. Their standard operating procedure was simple: arrive at a primitive world, demand surrender, and either accept submission or demonstrate their superior firepower. They had never encountered serious resistance from a species making its first steps into galactic civilization. "Sir, incoming transmission from the lead Vorthok vessel," reported Lieutenant Kim Nari from her communications station. Her voice remained steady despite the fact that everyone on the bridge knew they were outgunned, outmanned, and facing technology centuries beyond their understanding. The main screen flickered to life, revealing the imposing figure of Admiral L. Zekthal, the Vorthok fleet commander. His reptilian features were marked by ritual scars that indicated his status as a veteran of dozens of successful conquests. His cold, black eyes surveyed the human command crew with the same interest farmer might show when examining livestock. Primitive humans, Zekthal's voice carried the weight of absolute authority. "Your species has attracted the attention of the Vorthok Collective. You will surrender your military installations and submit to our rule. Resistance will result in the complete sterilization of your homeworld." The bridge fell silent. Every human present understood the implications. Earth's entire space-based defense consisted of Luna Station and a handful of patrol ships. The Vorthok fleet could reduce their planet to a burned cinder within hours. Commander Jinwoo stepped forward, his expression calm despite the impossible situation. "Admiral, we appreciate your generous offer, but we'll need some time to consider." "Your terms?" Zekthal's scarred face twisted into what might have been amusement. Your courage is admirable, but pointless. Your primitive weapons cannot penetrate our shields. Your ships move like insects compared to our vessels. What possible resistance could you offer? Jinwoo's response would later be taught in military academies across the galaxy. You're absolutely right, Admiral. Our weapons can't harm your ships. But you've made one critical error in your assessment. The Vorthok commander leaned forward, his interest piqued by the human's confidence. And what error is that, primitive creature? You assumed we would fight you in space, Jinwoo replied, then turned to his weapons officer. Lieutenant Park, initiate Mining Protocol 7. What happened next redefined the concept of asymmetric warfare. Luna Station wasn't just a military outpost, it was built into a moon that had been extensively mined for decades. The human mining operations had placed precisely calculated charges throughout the lunar surface. Originally intended for extracting valuable minerals, the moon erupted. Massive. Chunks of rock, some the size of skyscrapers, launched toward the Vorthok fleet with the velocity of railgun projectiles. The alien ships, designed to deflect energy weapons and particle beams, had no defense against kinetic impacts from objects massing millions of tons. The first Vorthok vessel tried to maneuver away from the incoming debris field, but the sheer volume of projectiles made evasion impossible. Rocky fragments slammed into the ship's hull, crushing armor plating and rupturing internal systems. The vessel's elegant lines became a twisted wreck, drifting through space. Admiral Zekthal watched in horror as his second ship suffered the same fate. His own vessel, the mighty Devastator, shuddered as smaller fragments peppered its hull. Warning lights flashed across his command center as damage reports flooded in from all sections. Impossible, he whispered, his voice barely audible over the sound of his ship's hull groaning under the impact of lunar debris. They weaponized their own moon. The third Vorthok ship, attempting to retreat, found its path blocked by the continuing barrage of moon rock. The captain made a desperate decision to ram through the debris field, but the accumulated damage proved too much. The vessel's fusion reactor went critical, creating a brief new star in Earth's night sky. From his position on Luna Station's command deck, Commander Jinwoo watched the destruction with grim satisfaction. Lieutenant Kim, open a channel to the surviving Vorthok vessel. Admiral Zekthal's image appeared on screen again, but his arrogant confidence had been replaced by shocked disbelief. Behind him, smoke filled the bridge as his crew worked frantically to contain the damage. Admiral Jinwoo's voice carried no mockery, only cold professionalism. You're correct that our weapons couldn't harm your ships, but you forgot something important about humans. We don't just think outside the box, we blow up the box and use the pieces as ammunition. The Vorthok Admiral's retreat became the stuff of legend. His battered flagship limped back to collective space, carrying tales of humans who fought with such creativity and desperation that they turned their own celestial bodies into weapons, processing this incredible battle record. Veltar's crystalline form pulsed with newfound understanding. These humans hadn't just survived their first encounter with galactic civilization, they had done something unprecedented. They had taken the concept of warfare itself and twisted it into something unrecognizable. The ancient observer realized that humanity's rise to galactic dominance wasn't an accident or a fluke. It was the inevitable result of a species that refused to accept the limitations others placed on them. When faced with superior technology, they didn't surrender, they changed the rules of engagement entirely. As Veltar prepared to delve deeper into humanity's military history, he began to understand why the galaxy's energy patterns had shifted so dramatically. The humans hadn't just conquered their enemies, they had fundamentally altered the nature of conflict itself, turning the galaxy into something completely new. Veltar's crystalline consciousness dove deeper into the archived battle records. Fascinated by humanity's rapid evolution from desperate survivors to galactic predators, the next conflict that caught his attention was the Proxima Campaign, where humanity faced their first true test against a technologically superior empire. Captain Lee Hunwoo gripped the armrest of his command chair as the bridge of the starship. Incheon shuddered under enemy fire. Through the viewport, he could see the sleek forms of Nexari warships closing in. their hulls gleaming with the deadly beauty of advanced alien engineering. The Nexari Empire had ruled the Proxima system for over 2 centuries, their plasma technology making them nearly unstoppable in conventional warfare. "Captain, their plasma cannons are charging again." Engineer Choi Minji called out from her station, her fingers dancing across holographic displays as she tried to reroute power to the failing shields. "Our hull plating can't take another direct hit. Those beams will slice through our armor like it's paper." The Nexari vessels were works of art, their curved surfaces designed to deflect energy weapons while channeling power to their devastating plasma arrays. Each ship was 3 times the size of the Inchin, bristling with weapons that could reduce a human vessel to molten slag in seconds. Admiral Kethfer, commander of the Nexari fleet, watched the human ship through his tactical display with the confidence of a predator toying with wounded prey. His species had perfected the art of space warfare over millennia, developing tactics that had never failed against primitive civilizations. "These humans are persistent," he mused to his tactical officer.
Act.
"But persistence without power is merely prolonged suffering. Target their engines. Let them drift helplessly while we decide their fate." But Captain Hunwoo had no intention of fighting a conventional battle. His eyes scanned the tactical display, noting the dense asteroid field that stretched between the human and Nexoria fleets. Most species considered asteroid fields to be navigational hazards, dangerous regions to be avoided at all costs. "Engineering, I need maximum power to the maneuvering thrusters," Hunwoo ordered. "Navigation, plot a course directly into the asteroid. Field, emergency speed." The bridge crew exchanged worried glances. Flying into an asteroid field at combat speed was considered suicide by every civilized species in the galaxy. The massive floating rocks could crush a starship instantly, and the dense debris made sensor readings unreliable. "Sir Navigator," Park Jinsu spoke up hesitantly, "the asteroid field is classified as a Class 5 navigational hazard. Ship's regulations prohibit entry without proper clearance and reduce speed protocols." Hyenwoo's expression hardened. "Navigator, the Nexari don't care about our regulations. They're about to turn us into space dust. Take us in." The Inchin plunged into the asteroid field like a minnow diving into a coral reef. The massive space rocks provided perfect cover, blocking the Nexari targeting systems and forcing the alien vessels to maneuver carefully to avoid collisions. Admiral Kethfer watched in amazement as the human ship seemed to dance between the asteroids, appearing and disappearing like a ghost ship. His sensors kept losing lock on the target as the dense minerals in the rocks interfered with his tracking systems. "Follow them in," he commanded. "These primitive humans think they can hide among the rocks like frightened animals. Show them that Nexari technology is superior to their cowardly tactics." The first Nexari ship entered the asteroid field cautiously, its pilot struggling to maintain visual contact with the human vessel. The sleek alien craft was designed for open space combat, not the tight maneuvering required to navigate through floating mountains of rock. That's when the humans revealed their true strategy. Captain Hunwoo had spent weeks studying the asteroid, field mapping the composition and structural integrity of each major rock formation. His crew had secretly placed mining charges throughout the field, turning the entire region into a massive trap. "Engineering, trigger charges in Sector 7, Hunwoo commanded calmly. The explosion was spectacular. A cluster of asteroids detonated simultaneously, sending fragments the size of city blocks hurtling in all directions. The lead Nexari ship caught in the blast radius found itself facing a barrage of rocky projectiles moving at tremendous velocity. The alien vessel's shields, designed to deflect energy weapons, were useless against kinetic impacts from multi-ton chunks of space rock. The ship's elegant hull crumpled under the bombardment, atmosphere venting through dozens of breaches as the crew fought desperately to maintain life support. "Impossible," Admiral Kethfer whispered, watching his formation disintegrate. "They've turned the asteroids into weapons." "Oh, how did they predict our movements?" The answer was simple, but terrifying. The humans had done their homework. While the Nexari relied on superior technology, the humans had studied their enemies' tactics. learning every pattern and preference. They knew exactly where the alien ships would position themselves, which routes they would take, and how they would respond to threats. The second Nexari vessel tried to retreat, but found its path blocked by another carefully orchestrated explosion. Captain Hunhua had turned the entire asteroid field into a three-dimensional minefield, with each detonation calculated to maximize damage while protecting his own ship. "Sir, the remaining Nexari ship is requesting terms of surrender," reported. Communications Officer Kim Soyeon Hyunwoo studied the tactical display. The last enemy vessel was trapped, its hull breached and weapons offline. But more importantly, it was intact enough to provide valuable intelligence. "Tell them we accept their surrender," he replied. "But make it clear that any attempt to scuttle their ship will result in immediate destruction of their escape pods." The captured Nexari technology proved to be a goldmine of scientific advancement. Within 6 months, human engineers had not only reverse-engineered the plasma weapons, but had actually improved upon the original designs. The aliens' careful craftsmanship was replaced with human ingenuity, creating weapons that were more powerful, more efficient, and far more adaptable than anything the Nexari had imagined. Dr. Yoon Sumin, head of the Human Reverse Engineering Project, marveled at the alien technology as she worked in her laboratory. "These plasma conduits are beautifully designed," she explained to her team. "But they're built for perfection, not adaptation. Watch what happens when we modify the energy flow patterns." The human-modified plasma cannon fired with twice the power of the original Nexari version, using a fraction of the energy. More importantly, it could be recalibrated in real time, allowing human ships to adapt their weapons to different targets and situations. Veltar Tide processed this information with growing fascination. The pattern was becoming clear. Humanity didn't just defeat their enemies, they absorbed their strengths while discarding their weaknesses. Each victory made them stronger, more adaptable, and more dangerous. The Corvin hegemony discovered this lesson in the most painful way possible. Their attempt to enslave human colonies in the Outer Rim seemed like a simple operation. Had been taking slaves for centuries, using their advanced technology to overwhelm primitive civilizations before they could mount effective resistance. Commander Yoon Dae-yoon faced a seemingly impossible situation. The Corvan fleet had landed on 3 human colonies simultaneously, deploying ground forces equipped with energy weapons and powered armor. Traditional military doctrine called for defending key installations and population centers, but Dae-yoon had studied the failures of other species against the Corvans. "Sir, the colonists are requesting evacuation to the defense bunkers," reported Sergeant Oh Soon-hae from the Resistance Command Center hidden deep in the mountains of New Busan Colony. Dae-yoon shook his head. "Negative. The bunkers are exactly where the Corvans expect us to be. Instead, we're going to teach them why humans make terrible slaves." What followed was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Instead of fighting a conventional resistance movement, the humans transformed their entire civilian population into a mobile guerrilla force. Farmers became saboteurs, shop owners became intelligence gatherers, children became message runners who could move through areas the Corvans couldn't even detect. The Corvan occupation forces found themselves facing an enemy that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere. Their sophisticated sensors could detect organized military units, but they couldn't track ordinary civilians who happened to be carrying improvised explosives or stolen alien weapons. Captain Velthak of the Corvan ground forces watched in frustration. As his patrols were picked off one by one, "These humans fight without honor," he complained to his superior. "They strike from shadows, then disappear into the population like cowards." But the humans weren't being cowardly, they were being smart. They had studied Corvan tactics and realized that their enemy's greatest strength, their reliance on advanced technology, was also their greatest weakness. The aliens couldn't tell the difference between a harmless human farmer and a deadly resistance fighter until it was too late. The Corvan occupation lasted exactly 3 months. When their survivors limped back to their home territories, they carried tales of a species that fought with such creativity and determination that they turned entire worlds into weapons. Humans had proven that superior technology meant nothing if you couldn't identify your enemy until they were already killing you.
Alt.
Crystalline form pulsed with understanding. These humans weren't just adapting to galactic warfare, they were rewriting the rules entirely. Each victory taught them new lessons. Each defeat made them stronger. And each enemy they faced contributed to their growing arsenal of tactics and technology. The ancient observer realized he was witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history, the birth of a species that could not only survive in the deadly arena of interstellar conflict, but actually thrive in it. Veltar's crystalline form dimmed as he accessed the darkest chapter in human history.
Oh.
The Great Purge had been whispered about in alien councils for decades, but few species understood the true scope of what had transpired. 7 of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations had made a decision that would haunt them forever. Humanity had to be eliminated. The conference room aboard the Nexus Alliance flagship was filled with representatives from species that had dominated galactic politics for millennia. The Zephyrian war machine's mechanical delegates sat alongside the bioengineered generals of the Velthari Collective. The Corvin slavers shared tactical data with the Nexari plasma specialists. Even the mysterious Voidwalkers had emerged from their dimensional hiding places to join the Alliance. The human threat has grown beyond acceptable parameters, announced Supreme Commander Zarkith, his multiple eyes scanning the assembled delegates. In less than a century, they have gone from primitive tool users to a spacefaring civilization, capable of defeating our individual fleets. If we allow them to continue growing, they will become unstoppable. The alien commanders nodded in agreement. Each species had suffered defeats at human hands, losses that seemed impossible given the vast technological gap between them and these newcomers. The humans fought with a creativity and desperation that made them unpredictable and dangerous. The solution is simple, continued Zarkith. We combine our fleets and eliminate humanity before they can spread further. 7 civilizations against 1 primitive species. The outcome is inevitable. Meanwhile, in the depths of Earth's military command center, Admiral Bang Xiochin stood before a holographic display showing the massive enemy fleet gathering at the edge of human space. The numbers were staggering, over 3,000 warships, representing the combined might of the galaxy's most powerful empires. Sir, final intelligence reports are coming in, reported his aide, Captain Yun Juan. The Nexus Alliance has deployed their entire military capacity. They're not planning to conquer us. They're planning to exterminate us. Xiochin studied the display with the calm expression of a man who had already accepted the impossible odds. The assembled alien fleet represented technology and firepower that humanity couldn't hope to match in conventional warfare. Their combined forces could reduce Earth to a lifeless rock within hours. Analysis complete, sir, announced Colonel Park Jian from the tactical station. Enemy forces outnumber us 50 to 1. Their technology is superior in every measurable category. By all logical military assessments, we should surrender immediately to minimize casualties. The war room fell silent as the weight of their situation settled over the human commanders. They were facing the combined might of 7 galactic superpowers. Enemies who had decided that humanity's very existence was a threat to be eliminated. Then Colonel Park spoke again, her voice cutting through the oppressive silence. What's the illogical assessment, sir? Admiral Seahawk-Jin's expression hardened, and when he spoke, his words carried the weight of a species that had never learned how to quit, that we make them regret ever learning our name. The Nexus Alliance expected a conventional war. They had studied human tactics from previous conflicts and prepared countermeasures for every strategy humanity had employed. Their combined fleet approached the solar system with the confidence of predators closing in on cornered prey. But the humans had spent the months before the invasion doing something unprecedented. Instead of building more warships or developing new weapons, they had launched massive construction projects throughout the solar system. Human vessels carried mining equipment, construction materials, and engineering teams to every moon, asteroid and space station within reach. Captain Lim Soyong commanded the defense of Mars. When the first wave of enemy ships entered the solar system, her small fleet was laughably outgunned, but she had been preparing for this moment for months. The red planet's surface was dotted with installations that looked like mining operations or research stations, but appearances could be deceiving. "Enemy fleet entering Mars orbit," reported her tactical officer, Lieutenant Kim Do-yeon. "There. Deploying in standard attack formation, expecting us to meet them in open space." So-young smiled grimly. "They're about to learn that humans don't fight fair. All units, initiate protocol lighthouse." Across the solar system, human installations that had appeared to be innocent mining operations or research stations suddenly came alive. But instead of revealing hidden weapons, they began broadcasting false sensor readings. The Nexus Alliance. Fleet found their instruments overwhelmed by phantom signals. Ghost ships that appeared and disappeared on their scanners. The Zephyrian War. Machines' mechanical commanders tried to compensate by switching to visual targeting, but the humans had prepared for that too. The space around Mars was filled with reflective debris that created mirror images of human ships, making it impossible to distinguish between real targets and decoys. "Impossible," muttered Admiral Kethver, as his plasma cannons fired uselessly. At holographic projections, they've turned the entire solar system into a hall of mirrors. The first wave of alien attackers found themselves shooting at shadows while real human ships materialized from unexpected directions. The asteroid belt became a maze of hidden bases and mobile platforms that could appear anywhere at any time. Jupiter's moons housed shipyards that could construct vessels faster than the aliens could destroy them. The war that the Nexus Alliance expected to end in days stretched into months, then years. Every victory they achieved came at a cost that grew exponentially higher. The humans had turned their entire solar system into a weapon, and every piece of space debris, every abandoned station, every seemingly empty asteroid could potentially hide a deadly surprise. General Kim Tiemann commanded the defense of the outer system, where the alien supply lines stretched thin across the vast distances between stars. His strategy was simple but devastating. Make every enemy victory more expensive than defeat. "Sir, we've lost the Ceres station," reported his communications officer, Major Jung Soo-min. "The Corvin fleet has taken the asteroid mining facility." Tiemann nodded calmly. "Excellent. Activate the sleeper protocols." The Corvin commanders celebrated their victory as they secured the captured station, not realizing that the humans had anticipated its loss. Hidden throughout the facility were delayed action charges and computer viruses that would activate weeks later, turning the aliens' prize into a death trap. The pattern repeated throughout the solar system. Every human installation captured by the aliens became a poisoned gift that would explode, malfunction, or turn against its new owners at the worst possible moment. The Nexus Alliance found themselves fighting not just human soldiers, but the very infrastructure they had conquered, Commander Veltak of the Voidwalker. Fleet watched his ships being torn apart by weapons that seemed to materialize from empty space. "These humans fight like demons," he reported to his superiors. "They've turned their entire star system into a living weapon that thinks and adapts." The alien commanders had expected to face a desperate but conventional defense. Instead, they found themselves trapped in a nightmare, where every victory brought them closer to destruction. The humans had learned the ultimate lesson of asymmetric warfare. When you can't win through superior force, you win by changing the rules of the game entirely. After 3 years of brutal fighting, the Nexus Alliance made a decision that would echo through galactic history. They retreated, leaving behind a humanity that had been forged in the crucible of total war. The frightened survivors who had once hidden behind asteroids had become something far more dangerous. The Great Purge had intended to eliminate humanity as a threat to galactic stability. Instead, it had created the galaxy's most formidable military force, a species that had learned to fight not just with weapons and ships, but with the very fabric of space itself. Veltar processed this information with growing awe. The humans hadn't just survived an attempt at genocide, they had transformed it into the greatest military education in galactic history. 7 civilizations had tried to destroy them, and in doing so, had created the very monster they had feared. Veltar's crystalline consciousness flickered with confusion as he accessed the records from the post-war period. What he discovered defied every pattern of galactic conquest he had witnessed. In his millennia of existence, the humans, fresh from their victory against 7 combined civilizations, had done something unprecedented. They had chosen mercy over revenge. The first test of humanity's new philosophy came barely 2 years after the Great Purge ended. The Andorian system, once a proud member of the Nexus Alliance, faced complete annihilation as their ancient star began its final collapse into a red giant. The stellar readings were catastrophic. The sun was expanding rapidly. Within weeks, it would engulf the inner planets where 40 million Andorians lived. Fleet Admiral Cho Minsiok received the distress signal aboard the flagship Sol as he patrolled the Outer Rim territories. The message was desperate, transmitted on all frequencies as the Andorian government begged for help from anyone who would listen. "Sir, we're receiving an emergency transmission from the Andorian High Council," reported communications officer Lee Sojin, her voice tense with the urgency of the message. "Their star is going supernova ahead of schedule. They're requesting immediate evacuation assistance." The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. The Andorians had been among the most vocal supporters of humanity's extermination during the Great Purge. Their plasma weapon technology had been responsible for destroying dozens of human ships and killing thousands of Earth's defenders. Captain Jung Hannah Minsiok, second in command, pulled up the tactical display showing the Andorian system. "Sir, this is the same species that called us a galactic plague just 3 years ago. They wanted us wiped out completely." Minsiok studied the star charts, noting the massive scale of the evacuation required. 40 million beings needed to be relocated before their world became uninhabitable. It would require every ship in the human fleet working around the clock for months. "Helmsman, set course for the Andorian system," he ordered. "Maximum speed." The human fleet arrived at Andorian space to find chaos. Civilian ships were fleeing in every direction, overloaded with refugees and barely spaceworthy. The Andorian military was trying to maintain order, but their vessels were designed for war, not evacuation. Panic filled the communication channels, as families were separated and transport ships failed under the strain. "This is Fleet Admiral Cho Minsiok of the Terran Federation," he broadcast on all frequencies. "We are here to assist with evacuation operations. All Andorian vessels, please respond with your capacity and current passenger loads." The response from the Andorian High Council was immediate, but cautious. Chancellor Zethmara appeared on the main screen, her reptilian features marked by exhaustion and desperate hope. "Admiral Minsiok," she began hesitantly, "we are grateful for your arrival, but we must ask, what are your terms? What do you expect in return for this assistance?" Question hung in the air like a challenge. Every species in the galaxy operated on the principle of reciprocal benefit. No one provided aid without expecting something in return, especially to former enemies. Minsiok's response would become legendary throughout galactic civilization. "Chancellor, we expect you to live. Everything else is negotiable." The evacuation of the Andorian system became the largest humanitarian operation in galactic history. Human ships worked tirelessly for 6 months, ferrying refugees to temporary settlements on habitable worlds throughout the sector. The massive carrier ships that had once hauled war materials now carried Andorian families, their possessions, and even their cultural artifacts. Commander Park Soonju led the final evacuation runs as the star's expansion accelerated beyond all predictions. His ship, the Busan, was loaded far beyond safe capacity with Andorian civilians as the stellar radiation began cooking the atmosphere of their homeworld. "Oh, sir, we're at 200% capacity," reported Engineer Kim Yujin, sweat beading on her forehead as she monitored the overloaded life support systems. "The ship isn't designed to carry this many people." Stungju watched through the viewport as Andorian rescue ships struggled to reach the last population centers. "Then we'll make it work. No one gets left behind." The final ship escaped the Andorian system just hours before their sun's outer layers reached the orbital distance of their homeworld. 40 million Andorians had been saved, relocated to new worlds where they could rebuild their civilization. The operation had cost humanity tremendous resources and months of effort. But not a single life was lost. The galactic community watched this rescue with stunned disbelief. The humans had just demonstrated that their new philosophy wasn't empty rhetoric. They were willing to sacrifice their own resources to save former enemies. This pattern repeated throughout the following years. When the Velthari collective faced extinction from an engineered plague that targeted their biomodified physiology, human medical teams responded immediately. Dr. Kang Yunbi led a research group that worked 8-hour days for months, developing a cure that saved billions of lives. The plague targets their modified DNA sequences, Dr. Kang explained to her team as they worked in the sterile laboratories of the research station. We need to understand their bioengineering techniques to develop an effective treatment. Velthari had been master geneticists, their entire civilization built on biological modification and enhancement. But their greatest strength had become their weakness when an unknown enemy weaponized their own technology against them. Working with Velthari scientists who had initially refused to share their secrets, Dr. Kong's team developed a treatment that not only cured the plague, but actually improved the aliens' immune systems. The cure was distributed freely, with no patents or restrictions. "Why do you help us?" asked Dr. Velthara, the lead Velthari researcher, as they watched the cure. "Being mass-produced in human factories, we were part of the alliance that tried to destroy your species." Dr. Kang looked up from her research notes, because that's what we do now, we help. The Zephyrian colonial crisis presented a different challenge. The mechanized species had established mining colonies in the Outer Rim, but their automated defense systems had been overwhelmed by organized pirate fleets. The pirates were systematically destroying Zephyrian infrastructure and enslaving their synthetic workers. Commander Rujihun's task force arrived at the besieged colonies to find a desperate situation. The Zephyrian colonists had barricaded themselves in their mining facilities while pirate ships ransacked their settlements. "Sir, the pirates are using modified Corvin slaver ships," reported Tactical Officer Nam Jiang. "They're equipped with EMP weapons designed to shut down Zephyrian systems." Ji-hoon studied the tactical display, noting the pirates' formation and attack patterns. They're predators picking off isolated targets. Time to remind them what happens when predators meet apex predators. The battle was swift and decisive. Human ships, designed for adaptability and innovation, countered every pirate tactic with devastating effectiveness. The criminals' stolen weapons were no match for crews who had learned to fight against impossible odds. The liberated Zephyrian colonies were shocked when the human fleet prepared to leave immediately after the battle. In galactic tradition, liberating forces typically claimed salvage rights or demanded tribute for their services. Commander Ji-hoon called out Colony Administrator Zeftun, "You are departing already. Do you not wish to claim the pirate vessels as spoils of war?" Ji-hoon shook his head. "Keep them. You'll need defensive capabilities to protect your colonies. Just remember to use them wisely." The pattern was always the same, humanity responded. 2 distress calls from species that had once been their enemies, asking for nothing in return except the chance to help. Former alliance members found themselves protected by the very species they had tried to exterminate. The transformation culminated in the formation of the Terran Federation. But this wasn't an empire built on conquest and subjugation. Membership was voluntary. Leadership was shared among all species, and the governing principle was mutual protection rather than dominance. President Seo Mi-kyung addressed the inaugural assembly on the space station, New Harmony, representatives from dozens of species listening to her words with rapt attention. "We have seen what happens when the strong prey upon the weak," she began, her voice carrying across the vast assembly hall. "We have been the prey, hunted to the very edge of extinction. We have learned to be strong, not through conquest, but through unity." She paused, looking out at the diverse collection of beings who had once been humanity's enemies. "Now we choose to be the shield that protects those who cannot protect themselves. We choose to be the guardians of those who have no one else to guard them." The applause that followed wasn't just polite diplomatic courtesy, it was genuine appreciation. From species who had discovered that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their ability to destroy, but their capacity to protect and preserve. Veltar processed this information with growing amazement. The humans had achieved something unprecedented in galactic history. They had transformed from feared predators into trusted guardians, earning the loyalty of former enemies through actions rather than words. The ancient observer realized that humanity's rise to dominance hadn't come through conquest or intimidation, but through something far more powerful: the choice to use their strength in service of others, rather than themselves. Veltar's crystalline form pulsed with urgent energy as he reached the final chapter of his historical review. The months of research had revealed humanity's incredible journey from desperate survivors to galactic guardians. But now, he understood the true purpose behind his awakening. The cosmic energies that had disturbed his meditation weren't just announcing change, they were screaming warnings of an approaching apocalypse. The first reports came from the galactic rim, where long-range sensors detected something that defied all known physics. Massive structures, each the size of a small moon, were moving through the void between galaxies at speeds that should have been impossible. The objects seemed to absorb light itself, creating dark patches in space that grew larger with each passing day. Contact with the rim colonies ceased abruptly. The Theta Centauri system, home to over 2 billion beings, simply vanished from all communication networks. Deep space monitoring stations reported the same phenomenon across multiple sectors. Entire star systems were going dark. Their signals ending in moments of terrifying silence. Admiral Park Seung-ho received the emergency briefing aboard the flagship Seoul. As reports flooded in from across the galaxy, the tactical display showed a nightmare scenario: dozens of star systems marked in red, indicating total communication loss and presumed destruction. "Sir, the pattern is consistent across all affected systems," reported intelligence officer Kim Yeho, his voice strained with the weight of the information. "No distress signals, no evacuation attempts, no signs of struggle. The civilizations just ... stop existing." The assembled fleet commanders from various species watched the display with growing horror. Representatives from the Andorian Republic, the Valthari Collective, and even the surviving Nexus Alliance members shared the same expression of absolute dread. "What are we dealing with?" asked Chancellor Zethmera, her reptilian features pale. "With fear? What force could eliminate entire star systems without leaving any trace?" The answer came from Veltar's ancient knowledge, transmitted across the galaxy as he broadcast his compiled history. His crystalline consciousness reached out through subspace communication networks, sharing what he had discovered in the deepest archives of galactic civilization. "I have witnessed the rise and fall of countless species," Veltar's voice echoed through command centers across the galaxy. "But I have never encountered anything like the Devourers. They are not from our galaxy. They are a force from the void between stars, a civilization that views all sentient life as a contamination to be cleansed." The broadcast continued, revealing the horrifying truth about humanity's new enemy. Devourers were not conquerors seeking territory or resources. They were exterminators, beings who had evolved beyond individual consciousness into a collective entity dedicated to a single purpose: the complete elimination of what they called the chaos of independent thought. Fleet Admiral Park Seung-ho studied the tactical projections with the calm focus of a commander who had faced impossible odds before. The Devourer fleet was massive beyond comprehension, thousands of moon-sized vessels, supported by swarms of smaller craft that numbered in the millions. "Sir, we're receiving requests for asylum from over 40 species," reported Commander Li Guan. "The entire galactic community is fleeing toward human space, seeking protection." Seung-ho nodded grimly. "Grant them all sanctuary. Deploy the fleet to cover their evacuation routes. Send a message to all surviving civilizations. We make our stand here together." The response was unprecedented in galactic history. Species that had been enemies for millennia put aside their differences to face this ultimate threat. The Corvin hegemony surviving ships once used for slaving raids now carried refugee families to safety. Nexus Alliance remnants offered their most advanced weapons to the very worlds it once tried to conquer. The gathering at the Terran Federation's staging area was a sight that would have been possible just decades earlier. Thousands of ships from dozens of species formed a massive fleet under human coordination. Zephyrian war machines worked alongside Valtheri bioships, their crews sharing tactical data and coordinating strategies. Sir, the Nexus Alliance survivors are requesting permission to join the main battle fleet, reported Commander Li Guan, her voice carrying a note of irony that wasn't lost on anyone present. Admiral Suongho looked at the tactical display, showing the approaching Devour Armada. The enemy force was so vast that it created its own gravity wells, distorting space around the advancing fleet. Granted, we're all fighting for the same thing, the right to exist. The battle for galactic survival began at the edge of the Centauri sector, where the combined fleets met the Devourer advance guard. The enemy ships were unlike anything in known space, organic-looking structures that seemed to be grown rather than built, their hulls pulsing with dark energy that absorbed incoming fire. Captain Zheng Minjie commanded the destroyer Inshin as it engaged the first wave of Devourer scouts. The enemy vessels moved with perfect coordination, like cells in a vast organism rather than individual ships with separate crews. Sir, our plasma cannons are having no effect, reported Weapons Officer Park Sujin. The enemy hulls are absorbing our energy weapons completely. But the humans had learned from decades of facing superior technology. Instead of relying on conventional weapons, they adapted their tactics to exploit the enemy's apparent strengths. All ships switched to kinetic weapons, ordered Admiral Kim Youngmin from the command carrier. If they can absorb energy, let's see how they handle good old-fashioned mass and velocity.
Yeah.
The battle raged for 3 days, with the combined galactic fleet employing every lesson humanity had learned from their previous wars. They used the environment as a weapon, turning asteroid fields into massive shotgun blasts. They employed deception and misdirection, making the Devourers waste their attacks on false targets. Most importantly, they fought as a unified force. Former enemies coordinated their attacks with precision that would have been impossible without humanity's unique ability to build trust across species lines. The Corvin survivors used their knowledge of slaver tactics to predict enemy movements, while the Nexus Alliance remnants provided advanced shielding technology to protect refugee ships. The turning point came when Admiral Kim Youngmin led the final assault against the Devourer command structure. His fleet included ships from every major species, their diverse technologies creating a combined force that no single civilization could have fielded. All ships, this is Admiral Kim, he broadcast to the massive fleet. We're not just fighting for our lives, we're fighting for the right of free-thinking beings to exist in this universe. Every species here today has contributed something unique to our combined strength. Today we prove that diversity is not weakness, it's the ultimate weapon. The final battle was a masterpiece of coordinated warfare. Human ships provided the tactical coordination, while Zephyrian war machines delivered devastating firepower. Valtheri bioships adapted to counter enemy tactics in real time, while Andorian vessels used their plasma technology to create breaches in enemy formations. Devourers, for all their overwhelming power, had never faced an enemy like this. Their collective consciousness was designed to combat single-species civilizations, not the chaotic creativity of multiple species working together under human leadership. When the last Devourer ship was destroyed, the galaxy fell silent. The combined fleet had achieved the impossible, defeating an enemy that had seemed invincible through the power of unity and cooperation. Veltar's final broadcast reached every corner of the galaxy as the ancient observer concluded his historical review. I have witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations across the eons. I have seen empires built on conquest crumble into dust and species that seemed invincible fade into memory. But I have never seen anything like humanity. His crystalline form pulsed with the wisdom of ages as he continued. The humans didn't just survive their wars, they transcended them. They learned that the greatest strength comes not from the ability to destroy your enemies, but from the wisdom to turn them into allies. They discovered that diversity is not a weakness to be eliminated, but a strength to be celebrated. Galaxy had been saved, not by superior technology or overwhelming force, but by humanity's greatest achievement, the ability to unite former enemies in common cause. The Devourers had been defeated by the very thing they sought to eliminate: the chaotic, creative, unpredictable nature of independent thought working in harmony. As the combined fleet began the long journey home, representatives from every species carried with them a new understanding of what it meant to be part of the galactic community. The humans had shown them that survival wasn't just about being strong, it was about being together. The galaxy's civilizations had learned to coexist under humanity's protection, and the universe was safer for it. Former enemies had become trusted allies, and the bonds forged in the crucible of survival would last for generations to come. The end.